The problems facing New Zealand's primary sector have been mounting at a rapid pace. So I think it's time for open hearts and open minds.
Welcome to Sarah's Country tonight. This is your daily fix of how we farm food and fibre passionately when she's been hard yakka out there. There is no silver bullet, but there's a silver lining. I want to find the silver lining in every little nook and cranny I can in this awesome community I was proudly born into, and I will be with you till the day I die. That is the primary industry. Oh, well, we heard from Doug Avery on our comedy drought special last night, thanks to the great team at Balance Agri-Nutrients. If you joined along with us, oh my goodness, I tell you what, I had a sore stomach last night from laughing. It was absolutely fantastic. So thank you so much, Balance, for bringing us as wonderful comedians and all the work that went on to pull that off. Yeah, as I was saying, Doug Avery sung for us at the end of last night. That was a special treat. Thank you, Uncle Doug. He shared with us the 4 pillars we need as humans: love, connection, purpose, and hope. We wobble when one of those is out of whack. So silver linings are hope and purpose. It's the reason we get out of bed every day. My sister Ellie's Will to Live, a campaign, was born in gratitude, but also it was about finding your will to live. Now, media beat up on fear. But I think that day is coming to an end as the audience are turning off negativity. We just want the facts that affect us to, get through what we can actually control. So for those of you who are new tonight, welcome to Sarah's Country. I'm your host, Sarah Perium, and we are live Monday through Thursday every week across 10 different platforms across social media and online, farmersweekly.co.nz and sarahperium.com. I'm actually loving getting photos of how you consume us. So if you do, please send them to me, whether you're sitting back watching on your big screen TV because you've worked out how to find it on Farmers Weekly's YouTube channel, or even just out in the tractor listening to us on podcasts. Please send them in. I really love it. This show was actually created because I wanted a place for your voices to be heard and at the table. So please comment below wherever you're watching live. And email me, sarah@periummedia.com, anytime with all of your thoughts and suggestions. Tonight in the comments with you all, I want to hear about the best New Zealand invention in farming in our history. Because, I think we should celebrate how we've innovated to be better and how certain farming inventions have transformed our sector to be more resilient. Was it the haze wire strainer or the electric fence? Was it the plough or was it precision variable rate irrigation? What has been that one thing that you can attribute to that's made your lives easier farming food and fibre here in New Zealand? Why? Because to stay focused on our purpose and have hope for our future, we've got to reflect on the times prior to having these things in our lives and what it would have been like. We are not going to waste this crisis. We're going to use it to create opportunities. I sure have with this show, thanks to the support of my craziness from the team at Farmers Weekly. If Dean Williamson had here, it would have been the fastest you'd ever see anyone go grey. So I'm very, very fortunate to have launched in COVID and be with you with this new format for the ongoing future. Now, tonight's guests are inspiring in their own way amidst challenges. We can be quite quick to throw the boot in a lot in our primary sector. Mate, I'm the first to rise to that challenge, but I want to actually go, hang on a minute, let's breathe and navigate this ship together. After 720, many foreign buyers of our crossbred wool are being forced into desperate measures because of shut factories around the world, as well as a collapse in demand for the textiles they produce. And our wool exporters, are brunting the front of this with missed payments on behalf of our wool farmers and becoming New Zealand's next firefighters, if it couldn't get any worse for crossbred wool. We have Managing Directors from Seaguard Marcel's on Sarah's Country, Peter Whiteman. And let's find a silver lining for wool. and asked Peter that. The sale yards have reopened under level 2, clearing a backlog of store and prime stock. However, the lockdown saw the rise of online trading, livestock trading, and a lot of different platforms. Now, StockX Managing Director Jason Roebuck will talk to us about the market dynamics he's seen in online trading behaviours, with StockX being one of those pioneers. That's after 7:30. And to close the show, we head to Northland, that has thankfully received more drought funding, as well as having experienced the worst drought in generations. I have lost my script, and I'm not quite sure why. But first up on the show, I can tell you that with privilege, I have the wonderful, we're after 7:40, client premiere day, Dr. Jason Smith. Hey, Joel, stop laughing. This is what it is to be a real, authentic, live show, and I don't mind. I'm not here to be perfect. After 7:40, on that Northland drought, client premiere Dr. Jason Smith is going to share the situation and his frustrations about these shovel-ready projects that we keep going on about, but not happening quick enough when it comes to water infrastructure. First up on Sarah's Country, we're going to discuss how financial institutes are becoming increasingly cautious about farm lending. So why not try leasing out your dairy herd? StockCo General Manager Will Purvis is joining us next to discuss how farmers can tap into a $1 billion fund. This is Sarah's Country.
G'day Kiwis, it's us here.
Your friendly competition.
And we got a message for you!
Internationally, there are a few things you guys are known for being pretty good at.
Working hard. Barbecuing.
Playing rugby.
At least you used to be.
Milking cows.
And leaving stuff to the last minute.
We know you're really busy.
And you got plenty of other stuff on your plate.
But this is far too important not to give a gentle reminder.
This month you have the opportunity to vote on your Dairy NZ levy.
And whether you want them to keep going.
Investing in world-leading science.
Groundbreaking research.
Top-notch innovation.
Growing people!
And bloody effective advocacy.
You should have seen a big green envelope arrive in the post.
Have you voted?
Make sure you have your say.
This is about our future.
New Zealand dairy farmers have just days left to vote on the milk solids levy. If you haven't received it and you don't know, dairynz.co.nz/vote is where you need to go. Remember, 5 p.m. Saturday, May 30th. You can do it all online. It'll take you all of 2 minutes, literally. So remember, share milkers are eligible to vote as well on the milk solids levy, and your voice is important too. So, as I've always said, it's a simple yes or no. You go on 2 seconds. If you don't vote, you don't have the right to complain. So just get on and get it done. That is a message coming strongly from Dairy NZ. dairynz.co.nz/vote. Make sure you do it before 5 o'clock this Saturday. And of course, we're talking tonight about inventions. What is your favourite New Zealand farming invention that's made your life a lot easier? I've got Megan there sending me through your comments. I'm looking down here. Of course, the wonderful Trish Rankin. She'll be one to invent a lot into our future apps on the smartphone, Trish said, to access info you need when you need it. Trish, can you please comment, what is your best apps that you use on the farm? I really want to know and share with everybody. What's those ones? There's a lot of duplication, but there's a lot of really good ones. So Trish, please share with us and anybody else what smartphone apps you use on a daily basis to help you farm smarter. Now, in a bold move, agri-finance company StockCo Capital has launched a new dairy herd leasing service. Interesting. That will allow farmers to tap into a $1 billion of new investment as they struggle to raise capital in this current environment. And the May 2020 banking survey from Federated Farmers found members feeling undue pressure from their banks. It's dropped from 19% from 23% in the previous survey. While the decline is a slight improvement, it still means 1 in 5 farmers are feeling that pressure. We're joined now by StockCo General Manager Will Purvis to discuss a new initiative of a herd leasing service where farmers can sell their cows to StockCo Capital and automatically lease them back. Welcome to the show, Will.
Thanks, Sarah. Nice to be here.
Nice to see you again. We've had a lot to do with each other over your banking career, Rabobank, then Heartland Bank. Now, I just firstly want to say, like your movement to StockCo recently, what sort of inspired that, and where are you looking to go with that role?
Look, it's been I've had a long banking career, as you said, and actually not Rabobank, I was BNZ.
Oh, my apologies. Sorry, we're just having a little bit of an audio issue there, Will, as well as my apologies for that mishap. How are you going with your audio there?
No, it's not good, is it?
Can you turn that down a bit? Sorry. The joys, eh? How's that, Will?
Better now, Sarah.
Yes, it is. You're
Okay.
beautifully. So the move to StockCo as a general manager.
Okay. Yeah, look, Sarah, I have had a long career in banking. I've been lucky enough to spend most of that time in the rural space or the agribusiness space. But in 2015, I left my career and in banking and started doing a bit of consulting. And it became pretty obvious in the 4 years that I was a consultant that farmers, I was helping farmers out with their capital structures and managing their debt. And it became pretty obvious that there was a need for some new money or new capital to invest in agriculture. But it's pretty difficult for new entrants to actually come in and lend money into the farming sector. So, we've got to have systems.
Can I just stop you there for 2 seconds, Will, because everything that comes out your mouth is its extreme value. What we're going to do is we're going to throw to a break, and Joel's going to grab you on the phone, and we'll have a yarn to you on the phone. This is Sarah's Country. This is Sarah's Country.
Every morning, Kiwi farmers wake up to produce high quality food. Yet, every night, some Kiwi families are going to sleep hungry. Meet the Need is a charity founded by farmers, and it's here to change all that. We're about New Zealand farmers feeding New Zealand families by donating a small part of what we grow when we can. You can help us make sure no one in New Zealand goes to sleep hungry again. Visit meettheneed.org and follow us on social.
No sound coming through. How's that? Give me a... Yep, it's looking good. I was just saying, Trish Rankin has said that she's sending through quite a few there. We're talking about apps. The GPS Fields Area Measure. If you know how much area you want your cows to have, you drive into the paddock and it plots where your temporary break fencing goes. She also says PaySource for timesheets is great, and the Fonterra app for checking milk pickup and quality. Awesome. Paul Harris, of course, said the same. Fonterra and Duncan Brown, Cloud Farmer, Agricord works well. Please send in what we're talking about, not specifically about apps, but the best inventions that New Zealand farming has had over the period of our farming career that's made our life easier, because we're here on Sarah's country, we're looking for opportunities. And one of those is how to navigate this very interesting situation around getting capital onto our farms. And we're back now with StockCo Capital General Manager Will Purvis. Will, can we hear you loud and clear?
Well, I can hear you, Sarah. Can you hear me?
Good. I'd like to hear more from you and you hear less from me. Now, as you were saying, Will...
Well, look, Sarah, over the last 4 years, I was doing a bit of consulting and helping farmers raise capital to advance their farming businesses, and it became increasingly obvious that there was a need for new capital to come into the sector. The banks were quite rightfully starting to become a little bit more conservative in their lending and looking to build their own strength to deal with things like the COVID-19 problem that we have right now. So it's not easy, though, for a new entrant to come into the farm finance sector. They've got to have systems, processes, and capability to identify the right opportunities to manage the risk. And I guess when I got the opportunity to work with StockCo and Marcus Kite, we started talking about the opportunity to bring some new capital in to work alongside the existing financiers, which seemed a lot more sensible than trying to replace the existing financiers. And build this lease product out. So it's how it all started, really.
Okay, so this has come from some encouragement from the Reserve Bank for banks to be act more prudently around farm lending because debt levels were getting so high. So whereabouts is this real support of this $1 billion to throw into new initiatives to get capital on farms and help support farmers?
Well, it really is to allow farmers who are struggling with liquidity to raise capital that they've got tied up in their herd, to use it to consolidate their banking position, to consolidate their debts, to potentially invest in some infrastructure or grow their business. So there's a lot of farmers who are in pretty good shape, have got really strong businesses, and are just struggling to raise capital to actually do things positive and improve their position.
How is this different to your years at Heartland Bank with stock finance?
Look, it's I think the main difference is that we are focused solely on livestock. We are only a livestock lender, and we are only looking to support farmers through the provision of finance for their livestock and through the leasing product. And StockCo has been around for 25 years. It's focused solely on livestock finance for that period, and it's carved out quite a strong niche. It's developed really good systems and processes to manage the risk and identify the right opportunities. So, look, I think it's just a lot more focused on livestock and helping farmers.
Okay, so yeah, absolutely. So the process obviously is you purchase the livestock and tick it up to StockCo. StockCo take that risk, and you be a good little farmer and make sure they don't die and get them through to the end to be able to deduct the costs off at the end. But, as we're trying to ensure that we don't get more indebted as a farming community, how can this be, work alongside those other different options that we've got going on there for cash flow?
Well, Sarah, there's not a lot of other alternative capital in the market at the moment. The banks are doing a great job, and they have done a great job. I've worked for them for a long time, and really we're very lucky that we have such strong and well capitalised banks. But the Reserve Bank wants the banking sector as a whole to ensure that well positioned to deal with the COVID-19 type scenarios in the future. So this is an opportunity for farmers to access capital to do something to grow their business and to make the businesses stronger through investment in it could be into projects such as effluent management or buying a runoff so that they can destock their farms. So there's all sorts of opportunities that will strengthen dairy businesses through the provision of this capital.
Or in a lot of situations, lease out their animals to be able to buy feed for them. In current situations around the country. Well, now, I do actually want to use the opportunity. I know we're just running a wee bit behind here on time, but Southern Station Wagyu is a really great animal welfare story.
Yes, it is. It is putting it's providing a lot of animals that may have been held as bobber calves, and it's providing them with a great future in terms of growing into a lot of value, and it's a good story, right?
Yeah, so I just finished that because the audio was just breaking up there. But Southern Station Wagyu is a product of StockCo, whereby basically putting Wagyu bulls over some dairy cows and ensuring that bobby calves aren't going to waste, and that they found a home at the other end. So a lot of great things going on with StockCo. I just want to acknowledge, thank you so much, Will Purvis, General Manager for StockCo Capital, talking there around the news story today that there's $1 billion that farmers can tap into when they can lease their animals through StockCo. And Paul Harris has actually commented to say that it is a great product. The payments are tax deductible. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us there, Will. I'm sure we'll have you back on the program as we unpick the hard times it is getting capital onto our farms to ensure we can be obviously profitable, but as well as environmentally sustainable going into the future. I want your silver linings in this crisis in the comments below, and what is those inventions that you can attribute to your current standard of living in this farming environment that we would be lost without? What is it? The electric fence, the haze wire strainer, the old David Brown, or is it those little things like fertigation and variable rate irrigation and drones and like what Halter are doing with their cow collars? Where are we going with this? This is so exciting and so fun because God damn, I don't know if it's just me, but I'm getting sick of the beat up, and we have to look forward into the future. This is about silver linings here on Sarah's Country. Now, coming up next on Sarah's Country, it's wool, as we talked about silver linings. We're going to take another blow, and it's a long one, with Peter Whiteman from Seaguard's Masurel on the shaky contracts our foreign buyers are trying to wiggle out of our grasp. This is Sarah's Country.
Growing a better world takes courage. It takes foresight and vision. It's about dreaming big, then being brave enough to follow that dream through. To create a world where food is plentiful, soils are healthy, and rivers run crystal clear. A world where we grow more with less, where livestock is tended to with care. Energy is friend, not foe, and waste is a valuable resource. This is the world you're already shaping through imagination, innovation, and determination. So as small steps become huge leaps, you move boldly forward. And Rabobank is there beside you to help grow a better world together.
Now, foreign wool buyers are threatening to walk away from contracts with New Zealand exporters as they fight to survive the global coronavirus lockdown. Many foreign buyers were being forced into desperate measures because of shut factories, as well as a collapse in demand for the textiles they produce. This has contributed to the savage 25% slump in crossbred wool prices at the first auction since the local lockdown ended at Napier last week. Certainly don't need to fall any further. You can read that full story by Nigel Sterling at farmersweekly.co.nz. Wool exporter Seagard Masurel Managing Director Peter Whiteman joins us now. Good evening, Peter.
Hi, Sarah.
Now, tell us, what is the market like for you at the moment?
Well, as you mentioned, there's been a 25% drop at the first auction that was held in Napier last Thursday, and unfortunately, the price is just a symptom of the lack of demand, or that we're locked with these pending contracts that we already have with customers that are not uplifting it. So there's no new demand coming into the market. Unfortunately, it sounds a bit glib, but the price is almost irrelevant. We need to get wool shipped and new contracts booked and moving before we can start to talk about some normalcy of price.
So what about the legalities of these buyers walking away from these contracts? What leg do you have to stand on?
Most of these contracts we do under the auspices of the International Wool Textile Organisation contracts and specifications. And it's quite a robust contract on the side of the technicalities and the like. But when you have cross-border trade, to try and really push or action those contracts when you have a buyer under stress or who really doesn't want to, it's quite difficult, particularly if they're prepared to walk from the relationship. Then it is rather difficult, particularly in non-Western hemispheres with the laws that are quite different to ours.
Okay, so let's walk around the markets. What particularly is happening in Europe and the UK?
Well, they're completely shut. That's the real problem. Europe, UK, and the USA is what's driving a lot of the behaviour from if you like, from Asia, because over the years with the high costs in Europe and the USA, early stage manufacturing has moved to Asia, China, India, Nepal, and the likes. But the end product still goes to Europe. So until Europe and the US and the Western countries, if you like, start consuming and people get into the shops, we can do all we want here and talk about things all we like, but nothing's going to happen. So they're locked down and they're shut, basically.
Right, okay. So, I mean, the supply chain of wool, there's a lot of people clipping the ticket along the way, Peter, and, wool exporters have come under a bit of criticism in the past. But, I mean, where the risk lies is the reward, right?
Yes, and I think that what you've mentioned there, Sarah, is a bit of an old adage. I mean, for instance, our company, Seagard Masurel, we have our own direct buying from the farm. So we buy directly from the farm, we scour the wool, we export it, and 65% of our customers are branded manufacturers. So when you say there's a lot of people in the middle clipping the ticket, in our case, for 65% of our wool, there is just one person. So that is being reformed in the industry big time.
PGG Wrightson's Dave Burridge has said that basically prices are as low as they have been since the late 1980s when the Wool Board intervened and to support prices for farmers. What's your suggestion, Peter?
Well, actually, no disrespect to Dave, but they're lower than that. I'm a long-serving trade member too, and they've never been as low as this. And like I said from the start, unfortunately, it's not a symptom of price. This is just a pure demand thing. If we got demand back, prices could go up $1 or $2 very easily. But until they do, they could drift even further. And the build-up of stock in New Zealand is also starting to be a bit of a concern. Farmers are still shearing, but the wool's not moving.
Yeah, absolutely. Unless it's stockpiling here and not on the shores of China. But to be honest, though, Peter, I mean, this isn't a COVID problem with crossbred wool.
Crossbred wool has been in a bad state for probably at least 10 years, but this COVID thing is just, it has stopped people buying. And if you think or believe that some of the things that might happen to real estate, you'll have the wealth effect of households. They won't want to buy because in theory they'll feel poorer. You'll have job insecurity. So for a product like wool, it's well down the feed chain. Carpets and interior textiles are well down the feed chain of household spending, and indeed in commercial spending too. So if there's something you can delay, it's a product that you can delay, and that's what we're facing now. People are just not buying wool, carpets and interiors.
I would always love a bit of optimism on Sarah's Country, Peter, but I do not like to have doom and gloom. So I like to try and find the silver lining in everything, and I'm looking to you for some inspiration. Is there something that we can hang our hat on?
Well, I'm part of a small group that the Minister of Agriculture put together called the Primary Action Group, and we've been working in the last year on trying to revitalise the crossbred wool industry. And a number of the findings we've had in there have been very positive as far as the environmental side of it, the microbeads and synthetics. And in Europe in particular, there was a strong shift back towards wool. We never saw it in pricing at that stage because it was a long pipeline for the moment. But there is some serious optimism for crossbred wool once we get through this demise that we're in at the moment, that consumers, particularly young consumers, are starting to vote with their feet on the environmental side of it. Over the years, probably people like my generation have paid lip service to that, but young people really seem to be taking it seriously, and they recognise they need to live in a healthy world, and it's not healthy in some parts.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us. That is Seaguard Mast Sales Managing Director Peter Whiteman talking there in conjunction with the story that Nigel Sterling did called Wool Export Contracts Are Shaky. This is Sarah's Country.
One of the first things you learn when you live out here
is where to shop for the things you need to live out here.
like electric fencing,
or horse feed,
or bee suits,
children's, chook food.
Do you want a couple of these? Or something stylish to wear. Not everyone's got stuff like this, but at Farmlands we do, and then some.
So if you need anything to help you farm,
grow, milk, drench,
rear, come on in.
Because we're out here too.
Going into lockdown was extremely frustrating for many who enjoy the privilege of selling through physical sale yards around New Zealand. And Level 2 saw us come out and be able to transact with social distancing and some protocols in place, but to revert back to that traditional method of selling. However, over that time of lockdown, innovation led the way in terms of trading stock online. This is livestock online. But, this is seriously not a new thing, and has certainly, with a lot of behaviour of consumers in general, sometimes it's just that push and that shove that we've been waiting for, and what is going to be this new normal. Now, an independent marketplace is something that StockX has operated on for the past 5+ years, and the managing director of that, Jason Roebuck, joins us now from StockX. Jason, good evening from the wonderful Hawke's Bay. She's pretty tough times out there for your fellow countrymen.
Yeah, good evening, Sarah. Yep, Hawke's Bay obviously is probably a bit of the epicentre for drought in the North Island at the moment. It's not to say that other regions aren't doing it tough as well, but certainly it's been challenging for a lot of people here for a very long time now.
And that backlog that evolved because of COVID on top of that drought, you would have seen the explosion of interest in StockX as a trading platform from farmers who had no other way. What was it like going through lockdown for you as an online livestock trading platform?
Well, for us, Sarah, it was a pretty extraordinary period of time. Unprecedented is a word that gets thrown around a lot, but particularly with sale yards as a sailing mechanism being taken out of play, and with MPI and government, pushing everyone to look to online options for trading of their livestock, it certainly we had to deal with an incredible surge of interest from not just farmers but livestock agency businesses and meat processors as well, as to how our business, little as it is, can help with the innovation that we provide in terms of an independent digital livestock marketplace for all of New Zealand.
And the rise of these online livestock trading platforms, Jason, was that a surprise? Do you think that it all worked well? Will they stay around with us going into the future, or was it merely a reaction, do you think, to the current lockdown situation?
No, I think, Sarah, that people have been looking to what online can add in terms of value to sales channels for quite a long time now. And in my view, and certainly that I think of a lot of contemporaries in the industry, both across agency businesses, large-scale farming organisations, right down to private farming individuals, online as a sales mechanism and certainly a purchasing channel is something that's definitely here to stay for the long run. There's a lot of value that it creates for all the participants on both the buy side and the sell side. And while New Zealand may not have had the experience that overseas markets have had for as long as they've had them, I think we're pretty quick to adapt, and we're very quick to adopt. And I think, in my view, agency businesses, farmers themselves as agency clients, and farmers as buyers and sellers on their own account have seen the incredible value that online can provide for them.
Yeah, well, let's work through a couple of those. And we've been discussing, of course, New Zealand and farming innovations that have made our lives easier. And it was quite interesting, Jason. A lot of them straight away started listing all the apps that they use. And there's a huge push now to be farming more efficiently. How does something like StockX do that?
Well, efficiency is delivered through a number of different outcomes, isn't it? It depends on the context. But in terms of selling livestock, for the farmer, they're not having to bring the stock into their yards, organise the freight, get them to a sale yard for a sale day. So they can easily list their stock and put them in front of a bench of buyers across the country, effectively connect to every farming business or agency business that's set up on StockX. You're reaching a much more dynamic audience. And as a result of that, they're taking a lot of cost exposures out of their business. They're also setting some price expectations that they're comfortable to trade at. And so they're not selling at the sale yards where, if you use that as the comparison, there's an unknown value, but a known cost to sell through that channel. And I think you'll find that most online trading platforms or mechanisms recognise that that is a core fundamental in terms of the value that they can create.
We've also noticed that, the great thing about animal welfare outcomes from not shifting stock around the country unnecessarily.
Yeah, absolutely. Stock remain on farm until they're sold, and then they're moved only once. And, that's literally the shortest route, isn't it, between 2 points is direct from A to B.
But then in saying that, Jason, over this particular time, I mean, the old man's an absolute classic. He couldn't move any stock because no one was buying at the time, and there was a real lack of feed. Those sale yards have been the lifeblood of farming in tough times, to just say, I don't want to see them back. How are we going to get out of these peaks and troughs of this type of mentality of farming?
Yeah, peaks and troughs, have value for both sides, sellers and buyers at different times and in different circumstances. And I think that's where online selling and online marketplaces provide a really valuable alternative to those traditional sales channels, where you are taking yourself out of the confines of a regional market and you're putting yourself into a national market. And that ability to reach more buyers from more regions more easily, create one auction lot, one listing on one platform and sell them in front of the thousands of buyers that they may be available at the time, is a much better alternative, we think, that's going to establish over the short to medium term.
I've got an interesting guest lined up tomorrow, Kevin Ford, the new head of NATE, and biosecurity and the movement of stock is huge. a lot of M. bovis's troubles came down to deals that weren't recorded very clearly as well. Jason, I mean, being able to trade through these platforms have got that element of traceability.
Yeah, there's certainly improvements that we can add to those national frameworks, and we've had early discussions with the likes of Nate and Osprey around how we can interface with them to make it easier for those compliance regimes to be delivered for the benefit of both the selling and purchasing farmer and for New Zealand as a whole.
And I mean, the biggest thing is it's really interesting. The old Sunday ring around is really all you've got to go by on terms of price, isn't it? But, this online trading platform is becoming a lot more transparent, especially interregional, about what options are available.
Yeah, so there's a lot of price point references that people can draw from in terms of market statistics for what sales volumes and values are being traded. And I think that's what more and more people are going to look for. And to go back to your earlier point about peaks and troughs in markets, a little bit more stability across the season is probably a good thing for everyone. But let's not forget that each region, has its variabilities, and each trading class of stock also has its variabilities. And those are the things that are the lifeblood of the trading community for livestock in New Zealand. So there's always going to be differences that are going to be of value to both buyers and sellers at different times. That's the vibrancy of markets, and that's what we're looking to provide as well.
We just heard there before from Peter Whiteman in terms of people trying to swarm their way out of these wool contracts internationally. The transactional element of trading livestock in this country, I have been always so critical of, Jason, because you can sell a massive on-farm lamb sale higher in value than the house I've just recently bought in Lincoln, with very little sort of framework around the legalities of that. How secure are these transactions online?
So in terms of online transactions, we've put a lot of effort into how we establish a really, really robust sale and purchase contract. There's a huge amount of effort that we've put into that, but to make it, cut it down and make it simple, effectively, we have a standardized approach to the description of livestock as you go through and create an auction for sale on StockX. As a result of that, the seller is warranting that that's what they'll deliver to the buyer on the completion of a trade. We've never had any major defaults or any significant issues. Oftentimes you'll get some variances in the amount of head that are delivered, and that could be down to things like they weren't fit for transport, or there might be some slight variations in the per kilogram average. But we're pretty tight on those types of things, and farmers and agents generally are really good at delivering what they said they will. In addition to that, on the way we complete our contracts, we've got two settlement mechanisms. One's called StockPay, which settles through our StockX trust account. So the buyer places the funds for the transaction on deposit within our trust account. The stock get delivered from the seller to the buyer, and we release the funds to the seller when we get notice from the buyer and the transport company that the tally, the weight, and so on are accurate and match the listing. The other mechanism is if you're trading through your agency business, if your agent is buying or selling on behalf for you, you can make use of their trading accounts as well, and they'll provide the settlement for you. So we've got a really robust legal construct around the sale and purchase agreements, one that we've seen be very, very successful, and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of livestock get traded, and it's never a problem.
And as we've been talking throughout tonight's show, Jason, what are some of those silver linings that you can see post-COVID for the primary sector in terms of our profitability moving forward and security over our farming businesses?
Well, look, I think that COVID and the changes to international dynamics around markets and where New Zealand fits within that is going to give our farming folk, quite a bit of vitality and the contribution they're going to make to New Zealand's economic recovery and our performance within that global context. So, again, they're probably going to be the heroes in the shining light, and that's something really exciting to be part of. for us as a small business that's starting out, I think that there's going to be some serious questions asked around how business is delivered over time, and online is only going to grow as a result of that, as people look to take cost out of their business and increase value. And that can work as well for the farmer as it can for the agency business using platforms like StockX.
Thank you so much for taking the time to join us out of Hawke's Bay. That's Managing Director of StockX, Jason Roebuck, one of the pioneers of online livestock trading, and we saw a rise of that over the lockdown. Of course, sale yards have reopened, clearing a lot of the backlog through a traditional sales method that we have become accustomed to. However, now online livestock trading has become a part of the fabric of our future businesses here in New Zealand for lots of reasons, as Jason just mentioned. Now, to close the show after this break, we are heading north to Northland. I'm very excited to know that Northland and the North Waikato have been given extra drought relief funding from Damien O'Connor just recently this week. And Dr. Jason Smith, the Kaipara District Mayor, joins us to explain about the situation, that the water infrastructure is not just about rural, it's not just about irrigation, it is about the entire rural community that is Northland, and how these shovel-ready projects that Mr. Shane Jones keeps going on about can actually get underway to make a difference, and they actually take some time. If you've just joined us, we are discussing in the comments below what are your favourite inventions that have risen up to support the efficiency of New Zealand farming. A lot of you are suggesting about apps. I want to hear more about, implements, things on farm, about ways that have improved your yield, your profitability, your environmental footprint. What are some of those things that you use on a daily basis that have made your life a hell of a lot easier? Please share them with us below so that we can read them out and celebrate that in every crisis there is an opportunity, and this is what we're talking about tonight. So please put them in below, and we'll get to that towards the end of the show after we are joined by Dr. Jason Smith out of the Kaipara Harbour. This is Sarah's Country.
One of the first things you learn when you live out here is where to shop for the things you need to live out here.
Like electric fencing.
Or horse feed.
Or bee suits.
Children. Chook food.
Do you want a couple of these? Or something stylish to wear. Not everyone's got stuff like this, but at Farmlands we do, and then some.
So if you need anything to help you farm,
Grow, milk, dredge.
Rhea, come on in.
Because we're out here too.
Now, foreign wool buyers are threatening to walk away from contracts with New Zealand exporters as they fight to survive the global coronavirus lockdown. Many foreign buyers were being forced into desperate measures because of shut factories, as well as a collapse in demand for the textiles they produce. This has contributed to the savage 25% slump in crossbred wool prices at the first auction since the local lockdown ended at Napier last week. Certainly don't need to fall any further. You can read that full story by Nigel Sterling at farmersweekly.co.nz. Wool exporter Seagard Masurel Managing Director Peter Whiteman joins us now. Good evening, Peter.
Hi, Sarah.
Now, it has been a devastating season and mounting pressure on the Northland region under severe drought conditions, some of the worst that has been seen in a lifetime. We are joined now on the line by the Kaipara District Mayor, Dr. Jason Smith. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Kia ora, Sarah. Great to be here. Thank you.
I know you'll be a very busy man in fighting for the Northland region every day with the infrastructure money that has been helicoptered around. Is any of it starting to land, as of course rain doesn't seem to be landing?
Well, look, I'd say right now we actually need rain more than we need anything at all. But the infrastructure money, I can say that there's been a promise of some $35 million has been indicated as coming to Northland for water storage that will be able to be used for towns and for farming.
Okay, so we're talking, obviously the immediate need is for rain, and I'm sorry I can't immediately turn that on for you, Jason, but the situation has got so dire that even with a lot of rain, it won't recharge those aquifers very fast.
So yes, the challenge that we have, and in the part of Northland that I'm in, which is just on the north side of the Kaipara Harbour, we've had 100 millimetres of rain since January, since Christmas, basically. So with only 100 millimetres of rain, what we've got is that most of the small farm ponds are dried up. Underground aquifers are starting to fail, and we are concerned about saltwater intrusion from the ocean hitting those aquifers. And also, very importantly, what's happening right now, because there's been so little rain, is that the bush, the kauri forest, is starting to die.
Wow. Now, obviously there's been a lot of drought payments from MPI and heading into the Hawke's Bay. Are you feeling left out in Northland, or are your farmers and growers being looked after just as much?
So, look, I'm really happy that the Hawke's Bay has had those important special funds for them. For us in Northland, we haven't had the same response and the same crisis, but our farmers can also put their hand up for that $5,000 per farm for advice. Of course, what the farmers are saying is that they want rain and they want projects on the ground. They don't need advice.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, feed and the processing backlog, especially with a lot of dairy farmers in Northland with cows going into that backlog, will not be helping a lot at all.
Yeah, so and there's been a bit of a perfect storm with the drought and then COVID and the works being on reduced capacity and there being less water being allowed for the meat works and so on across several months now. That's created a perfect storm. We've worked our way back out of that now, but the challenges have been very, very real here, and it's not over yet.
What's it been like for the growers, avocado and kiwi fruit, and affecting the quality and yield?
So across the north, yields are down. So again, in the Kaipara part, the kumara harvest is down by 25 to 30% less than normal. So in the South Island, it may be very hard for you to get any kumara in the coming season. And of course, also the maize crop, and I'm actually a farmer myself, and our maize crop was less than we would have expected because of the drought. And also, here's an interesting thing. In the last week, I've heard of some contractors having to re-sow pasture crops, autumn-sown pasture crops, because they'd germinated and then they've failed after they've germinated because of the lack of rainfall. And so they're having to be replanted again. These are just costs and costs and costs for the farmers, as and yields dropping. It's very, very challenging.
What are some of those high-level conversations that you're having in terms of not waiting till we get into these crisis points with not only drought on our farms, but our infrastructure, our local regional infrastructure as well, having long-term planning around this and not until getting to a point of breaking point?
Long-term planning is very, very critical for where we're at. And the drought that we're in right now, the bad news is, my read on it, is we're only about a third of the way through this critical drought. Some of the dam systems that we have now that feed Fonterra dairy factories and so on are actually going to take 2 years to refill to their normal levels. 2 years with the projected rainfall that we now have. And so one of the challenges that we have is that we need to be putting in place now urgently infrastructure, and the challenge is to get that moving fast so that we actually have water storage for next year and the year after. Because Northland, if it doesn't start raining, Northland will be in a very, very critical place.
How do you get on Jason, with regards to the rate take in Northland, being able to fund this type of infrastructure from a local and regional council perspective, as opposed to from central government. I mean, we had David Cull, the president of the local government New Zealand, on Sarah's Country a wee while back when Cameron Baggery was putting a lot of pressure on regional and district councils to use their loan book to effectively to get us out of this. But in regions like Northland, I'd imagine it wouldn't be as abundant.
So it's very challenging. So in Northland, you have 4 councils. There are 3 district councils and 1 regional council. Each of those councils right now is setting their rates and building their annual plan for next year. And each of those councils has a different balance sheet against which it can borrow or not, or a depreciation schedule that it can leverage off or not. And so quite simply, we've got a challenge of a mixed bag of different levels of rates for different councils all across Northland. I'm getting to the answer to your question. I'm just explaining the scene. It's really complicated.
Where it would be interesting to ask as well is the 3 waters versus 4 waters and it falling under people's different balance sheets as well, when it could be one particular system.
Absolutely. It's very, very challenging because we have drainage systems in Kaipara District Council, for example. We have 29 drainage districts which have individual targeted rates, and they're to do with the district council, not the regional council. We've also got stock bank systems with more than 250 kilometres of seawalls that are keeping the salt water out, and they're not funded by the regional council either. And so we are looking through some of the government infrastructure funds for assistance with building up those stock banks and shoring them up in this current period right now, in the COVID period, if you like, where there's a whole heap of people who are needing jobs, and these are shovel-ready projects that are already resource consented, but that people have not been looking at, particularly in the past.
And the flow and effect of employment gain for Northland as well?
So again, looking at significant employment opportunities with plantings for sediment control around the Kaipara Harbour in particular, and also tree and vegetation removal from the sides of roads, looking at some of the forestry gangs or some of the other construction workers who may be being laid off from other parts of the country. So it's a very, very complex time with COVID, on top of people actually saying, if you like, that they can't pay their rates anymore, but actually central government saying you need your rates to help fund the activities that need to be happening, and we're just caught in this fascinating perfect storm.
Oh dear. And you're a very compassionate mayor and well loved in Kaipara. I know Dr. Jason Smith, the Kaipara District Council Mayor, having a challenging time in very unprecedented times with the drought in Northland. We have a lot of fun here on Sarah's Country. You never know what you're going to get, and that's the best part about joining us. But you know what was quite nifty is that we pre-recorded that interview on Friday, and by fluke, I was wearing the same top. I don't know if anybody picked up on that. And not a big important thing, but at the same time, you know, we do our absolute best to secure you the best interviews. And I'm just actually sitting here having a look at what's on tomorrow night's show. Last show of the night, of course, Queen's birthday on Monday. We'll be back on Tuesday. We are going to Europe to look at the state of our dairy situation with Fonterra's sales manager in Europe, Huey van Vilt, and get a bit of an overview on the state of play over there. But as I said earlier in the show, I'm very looking forward to speaking to the head of Nate from Osprey, Kevin Ford. I am led to believe Now, he's a bit of a sharpshooter, and he's very happy to take all of your questions with regards to Nate. So that is on Sarah's Country tomorrow. Of course, that's all we've got time for tonight. For you to get into the next webinar you need to go to, we have Whatever with Wiggy, which is one of the ones I want to be able to jump straight into. That's with Craig Wiggins. If you want to catch Sarah's Country on podcast, make sure you subscribe to us on demand to take you with us in the morning. A lot of people do that. They don't watch the live show. They literally just put us on in the truck. And of course, if you want to watch back any of the individual interviews, you can do so by searching Farmers Weekly on YouTube and catching us there. So thank you so much for taking the time to join us here on Sarah's Country, and let's do it all again tomorrow. Good night, go well, and always remember that there is a silver lining in every crisis.
This is Sarah's Country.